The following program is brought to you by the 0DB Movie Podcast Feed. Hey, and welcome to the solo set here on the 0DB Podcast Feed. I am your host, Gabe Aniel, and I'm here to talk to you about the Netflix series Altered Carbon. We are on episode 5, so we've kind of gone over the hump, and it's supposed to get a lot better now, or a lot more answers are supposed to show up, right? So we basically open on Kovac interrogating an agent while visually seeing the girl that fell from the sky falling, right? Mary Lou Henchy. We know her name is Mary Lou Henchy. So apparently she was coded Neo-C, which is religious, which is why they can't spin her back up. That way she can't talk. So he knows something up. So he's interrogating this guy, and this guy is kind of like, I don't know who the hell you're talking about. Who the hell are you? This whole deal. And like, you hear him say that they grew up together. So now you're like, oh crap, he knows her. So, he basically like gives this guy the whole spiel, like, you're the senior systems op for interplanetary record and coding. You're supposed to have like the entire protectorate database. You got to know who she is, where she is, the whole deal, right? This guy is all bloodied up and he's like, I still don't know what the hell you're talking about. So, of course, right before he kills this guy, Ortega shows up. So Ortega shows up, talks him off the ledge, kind of brings him down. You saw before that he was like, putting this stuff in his eyes, which we've learned that is like this stuff that like gets you all raged up. So, she talks him down. This guy, she cuts him loose. He escapes. She talks him off the ledge. She kind of like comforts him. And now you're kind of like, wait a minute. She's comforting him. Like, they're not this close yet. And boom, we realize it's a flashback to when Kovac's sleeve was Riker. So it was the whole story we just saw in the beginning was Riker. So Ortega is telling Kovac's story of what's been happening with Riker. Now we're like basically at a location where they're both just kind of like hanging out, and she's telling him what's going up. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Kovac's place at the Raven. So Kovac is just pissed now because he's like, dude, I'm your ex-boyfriend. Like, no wonder there's all this, like, stress, right? So basically, Kovac and Ortega start warming up to each other, and they start going over the conspiracy of Riker and how he was framed. Because basically, Kovac was told that in that interrogation by Demi the Twin thinking that he was Riker. So now Ortega is kind of like, oh crap, this is, it's not a conspiracy, it's really happening. So they basically say that, Riker's conspiracy, Bancroft's murder, they're somehow connected. So now we're starting to like put the pieces together, right? Kovac basically walks out. They're still like a little rough with each other, right? So he just pieces right out. Ortega walks out with the head because now I'm figuring the head has a stack in it, right? So she walks to like the seedy part of town, cuts out the stack, throws the head into like whatever, a well or something like that. Kovac, he's back in the sky up at Bancroft's place, and he's looking for Bancroft, and Miriam is there. So Miriam's there looking all Miriam-like, and like she kind of warns him of Bancroft and how like bad he could be, and then then she proposes to him where she says she has a secret island, and the whole island is basically filled with her clones or her sleeves, and they're all controlled by her mind. So she's like, go to this island, it'll be like 15 of me and you, basically like, I guess it's like, this whole like having sex thing in like this Eden type area, right? And she's like, I'll give you what you want, and when you're done, I'll give you your freedom. You can be whoever you want, the whole deal, right? So he's kind of like, no, like, why are you proposing this to me unless you got something to hide? So she's kind of like, no, I'm tired of this life kind of thing, but like, I'd rather just have you. It gets really weird. So he's all like weirded out. Now we kind of see like the street scene again, where you see like the Fu Manchu dude show up, and he just talks to a cop. So he asks the cop if he's a believer, and like, it sounds like this whole religious thing. But the funny thing is that I've seen enough movies to get the idea that this guy's probably going to kill this cop and take his uniform. That's the only way, right? This guy's obviously working for someone that has a lot of money. So Kovacs goes to some like homeless type village where he was told Bancroft was, and he's there like, being a humanitarian, right? So we see Bancroft being a humanitarian, and we find out that basically all these people are descendants of there's a contagion bomb that went off on the accident apparently like generations ago, and these people are still in their DNA, so like they're really highly contagious, and they're constantly they're in an area where no one's allowed in. So basically he's talking to Kovacs, and Kovacs is kind of like, well, what are you doing here, like, and you see him touching everybody. He's like, well, these people aren't touched. He's totally getting he's doing the whole martyr thing, right? Like a god, right? Like a meth. Because you basically see him get the contagion, and he basically dies, because we know he's got many of his own sleeves, so he can do this, be a martyr. People think he's awesome, and that benefits him somehow. I still don't know how it benefits him, but it was a total martyr thing. Meanwhile, Ortega, she's trying to spin up Demi off the record to ask him about Riker, right? Because she wants to find out about the whole thing. So she has to find the body. She's got to do it off to this, because if they're going to do it in VR, it has to be on the record. And the cop shop is like, no, we're going to have to do this on the sly, right? Elliot, he's at the hotel. He's bummed about Lizzie because he can't go in and see her. And basically Poe is just trying to like be like, dude, it's for the best, like, you don't need to be a part of this. So Ortega's partner shows up at the Raven and kind of gives Kovacs a talking, like, things are going to get hot because they're ex-partners, that already, so like, don't hurt her or I'm going to hurt you, blah, 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 blah. So Kovacs finds that cute and lets him know that he's not going to do anything to her. So basically Kovacs goes to Ortega's to share a lead that he knows about what's happening with all this stuff. And they go out to the Fight Dome to see what's going on there, because he heard from Poe. Poe had some stuff that the guy at the Fight Dome actually does record, although it's known for not having any digital footage. The guy's kind of old school and has like videotape recording stuff that he keeps on the sly for when people need stuff for like extra money and all that kind of stuff, right? Of course, he's crooked. So they go there to the Fight Dome, and they meet Carnage. Carnage is the owner, proprietor of this place. Kind of looks really cool. He's got this max headroom thing going on, but with like a weirder flat top. So he's got the analog tapes. He shows them footage of basically Bancroft beating the crap out of his son, Isaac, in the audience there, watching this basically like Fight Club, Fight Dome thing, right? And the crazy thing about the Fight Dome place is that they're kind of walking through, getting a tour from Carnage, and he's got all these bodies in these, in the containers, and Kovacs walks by and sees his OG sleeve, his original Kovacs sleeve that the guy said that he got from DNA from the battle area, and they keep him around if people want to pay to use him to fight, which is pretty crazy, right? So now Kovacs and Ortega, they're doing all this stuff, and they're getting a little chummy, right? Now they're back at the place, and they're still talking about it. They're going to they break into Bancroft's kid, Isaac, his place, and like they basically find like a video in the kid's apartment of his dad and footage of him in Japan making a deal. So now they're just like, wait, I think the kid Isaac was in his dad's sleeve and did this deal in, I think it was Japan. They also find a portable 3D bioorganic printer, which is totally illegal and like, holy God, expensive. So they kind of have the cops come and take everything, confiscate everything, and it looks like they're kind of starting to close the case here because they're like, oh, wait a minute. It's probably Isaac who took the sleeve and killed his dad so he can be his dad, right? So now the two are back at the place, and she's kind of like stitching him up after all the cops took the evidence and all that. She's kind of like, let's go back to my place because he's still bleeding and stuff. So they're back there. She like, he takes his shirt off. The fireplace is on. She starts healing him, like stitching him up with like these laser healing things. And, he starts asking her what each scar is from. And she tells the story. And they see each other and like they look in their eyes and it looks like they're about to kiss. And she's all like, oh my God, this is so wrong, right? And he's like, yeah, this is wrong. So, they do it. So right there, basically, you think it's gonna like they're not gonna do it, and next thing you know, they go into the whole like when Kovac and Miriam had the sex scene. There was all those crazy positions and the whole like Skinamax type scene. This basically happens with them two, and it gets pretty crazy. So basically, like that goes and that happens, and then she gives Kovac Mary Lou Henchy's stack. And she's like, yeah, I had it for the mom, and now I still have it, so I figured you'd want it now. And then she kind of tells a story of when Riker got arrested from being framed. So now they're both in agreement that, like, Riker's case, Bancroft's murder, and the Ghost Walker, because they talk about the Ghost Walker. She, like, did this digital sketch of what she thought he looked like. Now they think all three of those things are connected. So now we're piecing more things together, and you're wondering why, which kind of makes more sense and gets more confusing. But they're working together now, so it's kind of cool, and they're also doing it. So exactly what Ortega's partner didn't want. So they spin up Dimmy the twin and interrogate him for basically to see what happened to Riker. Dimmy gets spun up, and basically he's getting interrogated by them. Pretty harshly, and like Kovac realizes that he's basically stalling. So what happens next is basically like Captain Tanaka shows up with a whole bunch of cops, and they're like, you can't be doing this, and basically like they free Dimmy. And so now they're like in big trouble because they weren't supposed to be doing this, and like she's all like, dude, Tanaka, he's got to be involved too. So they are all told to leave, and you got basically Ortega, Samir, which is Abood, right? Dimmy, and a uniformed police officer. They all get into the elevator, and as the door is closing, the uniformed officer picks his head up, and Kovac sees him, and we see it's the Fu Manchu guy. When I told you before that he's probably going to take that cop's uniform, definitely foreshadowing. So now the door's closed, and Kovac is like, oh, crap. So now he starts running down the stairs to try to meet the elevator. Meanwhile, we got the elevator scene where we know it's the Ghost Walker, Dimmy, Ortega, and Abood. And then what happens in this elevator is pretty badass. I mean, he's got this thing that like rips chunks of like Ortega off, like her side, the top, like blood spurting. Abood gets his head slammed, whatever. I'll let you watch it because you're better off watching this thing. But it's pretty gruesome. Totally gruesome. By the time the elevator doors open, Dimmy and the Ghost Walker are gone. And basically, Abood, right before the doors opened, the Ghost Walker, takes a gun. He's about to shoot Ortega. And Abood jumps in front of it and saves Ortega. Now, from what we saw from the gunshot, it looked like the gunshot went right through his stack and blew out his stack, which is real death. I don't think Ortega knows that yet, but Ortega was left there basically gushing blood for dying because when the Ghost Walker was going to shoot her for the second time, there's no more bullets. So they peace out, door opens, and she's freaking out. She's saying, save Abood. Kovacs picks her up, runs out of there. She's saying, save Abood, and it ends. It ends on a crazy cliffhanger again. So we're ending on a lot of good cliffhangers here. I thought this episode was good. It tied up some things and kind of gave me new conspiracy theories on what's going on and who it could have been and what's going on. Right now I think we're going for Isaac. They're thinking it's Isaac, but now friggin' Ortega, I don't think she can die, right? Because it's just like episode 5. So she's not going to be able to die. Abood looks like he's definitely dead. Damien the Twin's gone now. And he's in the body that Abuelita was in for Day of the Dead because they still have that body around. So now I don't know what's going to happen. Like, we're in a big mess here because now Ortega is the one that's like out. Just like Kovacs was before on that interrogation table. So we're going to have to see what happens in episode 6. And so far, so good. Yeah, man, let's cut it there because that's what it was. It was good. I was excited. It ended on that big, bloody cliffhanger. And that's it. Thanks for joining me on this one. Obviously, the next one after this is going to be episode 6 in this Netflix series of Altered Carbon. So don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, don't forget to subscribe also, which is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Podomatic. I'm your host, Gabe Aniel, here on the solo set at the 0DB podcast feed. And, write some comments, ask some questions, subscribe, give some good ratings. And the more of that, the more of this podcast feed you get from us here at the 0DB podcast feed. So if any questions or anything, you can reach me at Twitter at 0DB23, and Instagram, Facebook is at 0DB podcast. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.